All right, moving on to our second speaker. Frank Edelblut was sworn in as Commissioner of the Department of Education in February 2017. He started his career, as you probably all know, as a businessman, going from a certified public accountant to chief financial officer of a public company before he became an entrepreneur. Before becoming commissioner, he was a Republican member of the New Hampshire House of Representatives. Frank has been married for 32 years and has 7 children, God bless him, who are all home educated. His nomination as commissioner was strongly challenged because he doesn't have a background in education. But Frank is a very smart and thoughtful person, which anyone who talks to him realizes. That, along with his business background, makes him an outstanding person to run the Department of Education. Relevant to today's talk, he has a vision to make education accessible to everyone. I give you Frank Edelblut.
There you go. So good morning, and thank you for letting me join you. So you might be a little bit disappointed. So Ian had this like cool, PowerPoint presentation with all that artwork. So I've got my little notes on the back of a recycled piece of paper that I like cut up and use. But hopefully it will be equally as challenging and engaging and thought-provoking for you. So Ian, just a quick note, you mentioned Babelfish. So the technology exists. I actually have it in my office trying to find someone to pilot real-time translation. You do need one of these devices, but someone talks to you in a foreign language and you hear it in a different language in your ear, and then you can speak and they can do the other thing right back at them. And it costs $167, right? Like, wait, how about that? More of those things. Everybody can hear me okay? Don't have to hold this up. All right. So it was interesting that the topic, when Jody sent this to me, the future of, I think it was the future of education initially, was it the future of schooling? Because those are different things.
They are.
Okay. So I'm not sure which one you want to talk about, but I was thinking it was the future of education. And it was interesting. I just felt like when I read that there was an implicit, depending on how you read that, you might reach an implicit conclusion that there is a definitive future of education, right? That it's aiming at a specific point. And if we only, and there's been a lot of this thinking in education, if we only did this, right? This is what that future looks like, and everybody who does that, then somehow that's magically going to solve all of the problems. And I think that would be bad thinking, and I will challenge that probably as I kind of talk through some different points this morning. Like you want to purge from your mind that there's a kind of the golden ring in education. If one does this, then that somehow is going to solve all of the problems. So I really want to think about it in terms of, the future of education is that there will be a future, okay? So you can't stop that. We are marching towards that future whether we want to or not. It will happen. But as you're thinking about what that future will look like, a lot of times in education and again, it's been going on for a long time, but I tend to pick on the last 40 years where there's just been cycle after cycle of education reform. So when you think about the education and we think about what it should look like and how we put it together, I like to think about systems, and I'm going to talk a little bit about systems, but what we're after in that future is a be verb, not a do verb, right? In other words, like it is something about what we're trying to become, and if it's a be verb, it happens. Those things that we aspire to, those things that we want the system to do for us, just happen because of who we are as an education system, and it's not yet another program or something that we superimpose on a system to do by force, whether that's force of government or force of school boards or force of educators or force of whatever it might be. Because when you reach a B equilibrium, it becomes much more organic and has the ability to kind of move forward. And I'm going to share some things with you, and Ian has shared some information with you, and I was imagining as I'm talking to school board members, there are a lot of reasons why we need to make some changes in education. And so I can talk about a lot of different things. If you want, you can ask me those questions, but I'm going to put one on your radar. I shared it with the Legislative Committee this week, speaking to the Education Joint Legislative Committee for Senate and House this week. But this is a reason that you can take back, and when you're communicating with your superintendents, when you're communicating with your curriculum and instruction folks, when you're communicating with whoever it might be, if nothing else, this might help you. There is what's referred to as the equity gap, and I'm sure that people here know what the equity gap is, which is really kind of the disparity in performance between maybe either the norm or the average and certain subgroup populations. And we know, Ian pointed out that when we give students kind of statewide assessments, we get somewhere around 45-50% of those kids to the goal, which is what we say, here's what you need to be successful in life. We get about half of the kids to that goal, and then we graduate 90% of them. But when you begin to deconstruct that, we get about half of those kids to that goal, what you'll find is that certain subgroups don't perform well, and in particular, students who come from economically disadvantaged homes, right? They tend to perform about 20 percentage points less than that norm. And so if someone were to say to you, like, well, why do we need to make education reform? I would advocate that we are leaving a whole bunch of students behind in this current system. So we march on, but there's a bunch of kids it's not working for. And it's not that it's just not working for them, because that phenomena that it's not been working has been going on for 40 years. Probably since we started measuring it, which basically means it probably was going on before that. But the disparity is growing, right? So what you'll find is, as Ian pointed out, our results are flat, so we may be spending more money and our results are flat, but if you come from an economically disadvantaged home, your performance is getting worse. So the disparity is growing. So this system that we've created that theoretically is supposed to be the great equalizer is becoming the great divider of the students who actually are able to get the knowledge and the skills to be good citizens, and those who are not getting that. So if you need a reason, you can, when you're talking to your superintendents, when you're in a school board meeting, ask about that. What is the disparity? What are we doing? Why is this existing in our school system, and what are we going to do about it? And what's interesting is, in New Hampshire, and sometimes I know people don't recognize this, but we've been a leader in education around the country for a long time. I know sometimes people have a hard time, they're like, really? No, but I'm serious, we have. Actually, there was just a survey that came out this week. I think it had us in the top 5, compared to other states. But remember that those are relative measures, right? So if you're doing really well, but we're getting half of our kids to the goal and everybody else is getting 15%, then I'm still not feeling good about that, right? So I want to move things forward. But again, as you're talking to and dealing with your superintendents, these may come in handy as you communicate kind of a urgency of why can't we move some of these things forward? So in 2005, the State Board of Education adopted rules. That's a long time ago, by the way. So in 2005, the State Board of Education adopted rules in the 306.04, I think it's 6K, that basically talks about the importance of harnessing all of the community resources to help students get success, right? And part of the reason that the State Board back in 2005 did that is that they recognized that the system that we built is inaccessible to many of these students that come from these socioeconomically challenged environments. The system that we built can be hard to access by students with IEPs. The system that we built, for whatever reason, our minority populations perform lower. And so the question is, have we built kind of implicit barriers to some of those students? In 2011, there was a report commissioned by the State Board of Education about extended learning opportunities, and that basically is getting kids outside the building to basically learn. What we find in particular for many of the socioeconomically challenged students in particular, but I think it works for everybody, and I think Ian kind of pointed to this, is that when kids are engaged in their education, they do better. And not only that, they don't get into trouble. And in 2011, the State Board of Education said, basically in this report, all kids ought to have this experience, right? But in spite of the fact that we said all kids ought to have this experience, I was in a high school just before Christmas in one of our larger high schools, and 2 of the students had that experience this year, right? So we recognize it, we know we need to do it, but we have had a hard time moving. It's hard to move a system, quite frankly. And then I'm going to show you a video now. Where's Ian? And I share this video. It's interesting because Ian's like, well, did you see in this video they didn't say such and such? The point of this video, this is a video that was made in 2012. As Jody pointed out, I don't come from a background in education. I do come from a background of trying to be thoughtful and read a lot and understand things and try and figure out how to make things work better. And so in 2012, the company that produced this video for, I think it was in conjunction with the state of New Hampshire, they are the education establishment, so to speak, right? These are the education experts. They're saying we need to move. We need to do something differently. And so I just want to show you, it's not that long of a video, but we'll go ahead and we'll show this video, and then I'm going to come back and chat some more at you.
Croc TV.